Morgan. I'm the CRO of Moat, and I'm thrilled to be here today. I think we have a fun and exciting panel today, using essentially data and intelligence to create an unfair competitive advantage in sales. And when the folks asked me to moderate this panel, I thought it was somewhat ironic that the panel was about creating an unfair advantage, as the name of our company, Moat, is the sort of the basis of the name comes from a somewhat well-known Warren Buffett quote that says, in business, he looks for companies that are economic castles that are surrounded by a deep moat. And the economic castle is the business or the business model that allows it to throw off tons of cash. And the moat is what he describes as a durable competitive advantage or an unfair advantage. And so for some businesses, a very common moat would be their brand, right? So an example, probably the best example, is Coca-Cola. You can go anywhere in the world and you can order a Coke by name. You can show pretty much anyone on the planet that red and white can, and there's a presence of mind that they have. It's immediately recognizable. And that's the reason why I can't go out and put sugar and water and create a business that would displace Coke. It's their competitive advantage. And for a company like Geico, their competitive advantage is they are the low-cost provider. So I don't think there's one single silver bullet that is the competitive advantage, but I'm excited to be here with these guys today talking about how they arm their team and how they use data and intelligence to create an unfair advantage within their businesses. So I'm going to introduce our panel quickly. We have a diverse and experienced panel, and then we'll jump into it. So first up is Tyler, who is the VP of Marketing at Vidyard. So for those of you who aren't familiar, Vidyard is an online video platform that enables companies to transform communication and drive revenue. At the end is Mike Burton, who's the co-founder and SVP of data sales at Bombora. So Bombora is a cool business that monitors the research behavior of businesses and surfaces companies that want to buy your products, essentially. And then in the center is Roy. Roy is the CEO and co-founder of a business named Chorus. And Chorus records and analyzes what's discussed in meetings, helping you figure out essentially how to win deals faster. So welcome everyone, and we'll jump right in. So at our business, Moat, we took a somewhat different approach to a number of different things. So maybe just drawing off of those experiences and starting at the top of the funnel around sales development. One of the things that we didn't do, contrary to sort of what is a big trend at the moment, is we didn't build or we didn't create a sales development team. We didn't hire a whole group of SDRs to go out and create demand. So, Roy, maybe we'll start with you and let you speak to this one a little bit to get things going, and feel free to talk a little bit about what your business does as well. But how do you know if building an SDR team is right? I think there's an assumption that you have to do it, but how do you know if it's right, and have you built one at your current business, or are you thinking about one?
So we're in the process of building an SDR team right now. I don't know if I have enough experience to say if it's the right decision or the wrong decision, but what I do know is that when we relied on inbound, you would often not necessarily get people that are exactly within your ICP and the types of businesses that you want to go after. So we know that we can go after and win larger deals, and we know that our product disproportionately creates benefits the bigger a sales team is. Because if you're 4 guys in a room, guys or women, you can get a sense of the types of conversations that you're having. It's very easy to share those insights across the team. If you have a 30, 40, 50, 200 salesperson sales organization, you can't do that. And with predictable revenue, this idea of just how do you build something repeatable and scalable, I think the more you can figure that out early, the better it's going to be for you. And so with us, once we felt like we had a very good idea of where we wanted to intentionally focus our attention, building an SDR team that gains experience experimenting with what is and isn't going to work, and building that process is a good investment.
Awesome. Cool. And I want to come back to where you point your team in a minute. But Tyler, I guess from sort of the marketing perspective, top of funnel, any thoughts on SDR or demand gen in general and sort of how to go after that?
Yeah, I mean, we have a pretty mature SDR team and something we invested in early. And from what I've seen in the market, one of the places where I think you really want to make sure you've got an SDR team is if you're in I like to think of it as a push versus a pull market. So if you're in a pull market where it's a mature space and it's a well-known problem people are solving, it's much more of an account, executive landscape, and there's not as much education to be done, and it's more about relationship building. In a market where you're in a push market, you have to get out there, you have to tell your story, you have to test lots of messages to figure out what's going to work. That's where I love having a capable SDR team. Because it gives us a lot of chances at bat, right? They're folks who are out there pounding the market to see what's working, what's not. And if a rep in a given day doesn't flip an opportunity, it wasn't a failed day, right? We learn every day, which is a lot of the topic of this, of what's going to work. And we test different audiences, we test different markets, and having a team of folks that are coached to be in that mindset, that aren't expecting to close a deal every day, is really, really important. And so, maximizing your times at bat in that kind of a market is, to me, very important. But you can't be measuring the success of that team always on how many deals did they help to generate or close. You have to also be looking at how are they helping you understand the market, learn, and educate the rest of the business on what people are saying and what people are doing.
Great. And I guess in terms of measuring success, are there KPIs that you think about for that team, whether it's sort of number of opportunities that they create, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it ultimately, maybe to contradict my last statement, does come back to how much pipeline they're helping to generate or how many deals that they're helping to progress through the buying journey. But what we also do is we look at how they're influencing deals that are coming through different channels, different opportunities, different inbound lead sources, or if they're doing outbound programs. And we look at those individually and we understand where are they being successful, where are they not? Are there differences on an individual rep level? Are there differences in, again, this campaign sources or the kinds of industry that they're talking to? And then we feed that back into the system so that, of course, we're continuously optimizing and using that information to make sure that next month they are going to flip a couple more deals. And it's because they've all figured out, oh, this message worked in this market. Now let's all shift gears to focus on that. So I think at the end of the day, you do have to look at sales progression, but some of those other sort of underlying measures of how they're performing against different campaign sources, different programs, is still very important and can't be missed. Yeah.
Awesome, cool. And Mike, anything to add?
Yeah, we can speak to both sides of it. So we were just getting out of the gate. We actually outsourced to a really solid inside sales organization that helped us kind of start dabbling into the idea of building an SDR team. And at the same time, our marketing team built a really cool inbound strategy. So we figured out pretty quickly, actually, the appointments that were set up by the SDR team, we converted about 10% compared to the inbound. So it was like the inbound leads were much warmer. They were converting much higher. So we actually canceled the outsourced SDRs pretty quickly. So now the pendulum swung. You're like, okay, great. But same problem that you guys were seeing, like the inbound, we have to question whether, okay, are we focusing our time on the best possible accounts? And then when we look at our top 100 strategic accounts, if we're just nowhere with one or two of them, we have to, that's the balance. It's like, okay, well then, if we don't have an SDR team, what's our strategy for those? So now we're back to that side of the pendulum where we're reevaluating how we attack our key accounts without, with maintaining the efficiency of the inbound.
Awesome, cool. So I guess building on sort of the account selection concept, depending on where you are and sort of the stage of building your business, thinking back to sort of the earlier days within our business, there's unlimited opportunity, but only so many hours in the day, and you sort of want to maximize that opportunity. I guess it'd be interesting to talk a little bit about where you point that team and essentially how do you use data or insights or any other knowledge to inform where to point your SDR team or where to point your reps. Roy, maybe you want to get us going?
I'm going to pass on this one. I think that the other folks on this panel will probably have better input.
Okay, sure.
I'm happy to start it off. This was something we spent a lot of time trying to solve within sort of a a joint task force between our marketing and sales team. And one of the things we did early on was built an account scoring model to add some quantitative factors to understanding what were the different attributes that made somebody fit into our ideal customer profile. But what we did that had a big impact for us wasn't just based on firmographic and demographic data. Of course, we know companies in this revenue range or this number of employees or this industry, those are great. But we also started to look at more activity-centric information and things that were relevant specific to our business. So for example, we sell a video platform, and a company who has a bigger investment in video is more likely to become a customer. So we went into hack mode and we started writing scripts to scrape as many company websites as we can and their YouTube channels to figure out how many videos do they have on their YouTube channel. And we'd feed that into Salesforce, and if they had more than 100 videos on their YouTube channel, it bumped their company score. We use services to track if there were any job postings for somebody with video in their title. And if they had job postings with video in their title, again, that would increment the company score. So things like that don't come through in your traditional modeling, that you just have to be smart about and think, what does it mean in our business to have a customer that not only is an ideal fit, but also seems to be potentially in market for what you do. And so I think there's a lot of promise for that and a lot of great technologies that are helping people surface that sort of predictive information. But doing that helped us create a company scoring model, and then we just run that through Salesforce constantly, and anybody who bubbles up above a higher score gets put into our SDR BDR team as a candidate for outbound programs.
Yeah. Awesome, really, really smart, cool. And I guess, I know Bombora certainly plays in that space of using intent to understand who's actually looking to buy your product. So Mike, maybe you want to jump on and talk about how you sort of eat your own dog food and use your products?
Yeah, and we're just kind of, ourselves are just a part of our formula. Like we do the same thing, fit plus intent plus first party behavior, right? So we actually use EverString as the company we use to build our fit model. And they help us create a really, like our top 125. And then we have a broader range of about 6,000 accounts that we consider in our addressable market. And those folks help us define that. And then we use our own data to identify at any time the 15 to 20% that we see, what we call surging on topics like Bombora, account-based marketing, intent marketing, et cetera. Those are topics that are really important to our business. And if companies are researching those topics, we want to know what the subset is there. And then we see the companies coming to our own site. So if we see a company that's doing a lot of research on Bombora, ABM, intent marketing, et cetera, they're high fit according to EverString, and they've been to our website, we always are, it's never like, what are you calling me for? Like we're going to have somewhat of engagement there and probably get a really high response rate.
Great. So I guess thinking about that message, what message do you go out with, right? So once you've sort of developed some insights around who we're going to reach out to, either developing the message for that outreach or the message that ultimately you use in that first pitch. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think with the growth of tools that have enabled a cadence of outreach and the ability to create a cadence of multiple follow-ups. I have threads of 3 or 4 follow-ups with the pictures of am I stalking you, and lots of stuff that in my humble opinion, may be terrible for a brand, but may be effective. But would love to hear a little bit about how you guys think about the message that you develop and sort of the cadence that you use in outreach. So Tyler, maybe you want to get us going?
Sure. I mean, I think as we all know and appreciate, messaging from an outbound perspective has to be as personal and relevant as possible, and hopefully contextual as well. And so, I think the days are gone of the generic, hey, I do this, I'd love to set up a call, what do you think? And making sure people understand that you've taken time to consider their needs, to understand their business, understand their role, and show right up front that here's exactly why and how we can deliver value to you. So, again, that tying back to the theme of this, there are a lot of great tools out there to help you isolate that kind of information and understand, who might be interested in what based on social listening and other activities, which is great. But then the other piece I would say is, okay, great, what message you want to deliver. What you also have to think about is, of course, the medium and the tactics to doing that. So again, the days of a big text-based email and a voice call message, it's just not as effective as it used to be because 20 other sales reps in the building next door are doing the exact same thing, and inboxes are flooded and voicemails are flooded. So you got to find ways to cut through the noise and then again learn from the data of what's working. And that's where we're seeing things like send a personal video message instead of a text-based email as a way to stand down, introduce yourself, and learn if somebody's actually engaging in your message, right? Drop a personal message into their email and LinkedIn, right? Try different channels and learn from it because it's never a one-size-fits-all. And so you have to be testing different things constantly, seeing what's worked for individuals, and then double down on those. But I think there's a mix there of just having the right message, choosing different channels, and constantly testing and iterating.
Cool, thanks. By the way, earlier in the week, I was interacting with these guys and trying to get sort of a short tweet-length description of their companies so that I didn't fumble their intros. And when I shot Tyler a note asking for the intro, he sent me a video back. It was him explaining the company in a very short clip, and it was really cool. So.
And you knew who I was when you saw me here earlier.
Immediately knew who he was.
It's like we're best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very, very cool. Roy, anything to build on that or to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the SDR side of the house, and then there's the actual conversation that an account executive might have that goes a little bit deeper. I think with SDRs, just building on what Tyler said, having an understanding of how much you want to invest depending on, is it a tier 3 account versus a tier 1 account is important. And I think also experimenting with the personalities of the folks you're trying to reach out to and what's going to resonate most with them. So one of the things that we've noticed is that, like Tyler said, people don't just want emails. And people are impatient for information to figure out if this is relevant or is this not relevant. So ever since we announced our funding, I have been on the other side of people just constantly bombarding me with things. And there's a certain empathy that you build when you just delete emails without even opening them because they have nothing to do with one of your top 3 priorities. And so being able to really empathize with the people on the other end, which can be hard for an SDR to do if they don't have that real world experience, I think is one place where leadership can help them build that empathy, help them understand. And what we've tried to do in our outreach is figure out what's going to cut through to help somebody figure out if it's relevant. It might be including screenshots of the product. It might be a video. It might be an actual demo. It might be for folks that are tier 3, just saying, you know what, I'm going to play the long game. I just want to send you relevant content that I think is going to help you, like I genuinely think is going to help you. So for example, we've analyzed over 800,000 conversations in sales, and we found some patterns that are generally applicable across companies, and so we want to send some of those insights to somebody if we think it's relevant. And at some point just say, by the way, if and when this is relevant for you, we'd love to have a conversation, but otherwise here's some value. And that might be the better strategy just to get to know folks and build a relationship early on. Once you get to the account executive, I think it's a very, very different story because SDRs, half the time they'll report into marketing and they'll have a really tight connection with the messaging and the content and everything else that they're using. But the AEs fall squarely within sales, and it's very, very difficult, I think, to close the loop around what product marketing may want you to talk about, what they're actually doing in a conversation, and how folks are responding to it. And I think in that case, like not to pitch Chorus too much, but having marketing be able to sit in on meetings or listening to recordings or actually getting some feedback from the market goes a really long way because your AEs that are most successful, they may know something better about the messaging that works than the marketing org does. And they may take something that marketing came up with and tweak it into a way that's really going to resonate with the people that they know best. So I think my advice for that side of the house is just find a way to get really tightly connected and get everybody involved so that you can iterate on what's working.
I just want to touch on something that you mentioned with respect to, sending out that content that's more educational. I love that stuff, and we call it the no ask touch, and we make sure that within a 6 or 7 touch cadence, there's always at least 3 to 4 no ask touches as part of that. And a no ask touch is you're sharing something of value and you're not asking for anything in return, right? And without coaching our SDR teams to do that, it turns the other way, right? And every email is an ask because they're like, I got to convert. And by actually instituting that, and we'll look at their patterns and we'll say, no, you had more than half of these were asks, right? You can't do that. And so we, as a marketing team, we actually help them with the no-touch asks. We say, there's a webinar coming up. Share that with them because it's actually relevant to what they do. Don't ask for anything in return. Just encourage them to attend the webinar. And that kind of stuff really works.
Awesome. Cool. So I guess the sort of the follow-on to that is, I guess one of the reasons that personally I chose not to build an SDR team, and I think it's different for every business, is I reached out to a whole bunch of companies to feel what that experience was like, and how many times I was handed off before I actually got to learn something. And I went through, I reached out to about half a dozen companies, and in some instances, it was 5 or 6 meetings before I actually got to see a product. And I found that incredibly frustrating. I wanted to see the product literally in the first meeting and just figure out if it was right or not. I was ready to buy. I just wanted to see it. So I'd love to hear from any of you all about sort of the handoff process and how many hops you have and how you make sure that those hops are efficient. Anyone want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, we give away a small sample of what we do on our website. And about 80%, I guess I'd say like 65% now of our closed customers come through that engine. So I guess that happens, like we're trying to just show value right away before we even talk to anyone. That would be the idea. And then the next call is with as senior an AE as we have. So, I mean, we're still early on, and we're still going to figure out how we go after white space and key accounts that we're not talking to. But for now, it's like you get a little value on our website before you talk to us. Then, depending on the account and the territory of the rep, you're pretty much talking to the person that can tell you everything you need to know.
Cool. And are you guys willing to, in a demo or proof of concept, are you willing to demo anyone, or do you have to have the decision maker in the room, or will you just do the demo for anyone?
Yeah, I mean, in our space, we're pretty open. We always try to have that pre-qual discussion first and make sure that we're tailoring what we're showing to their needs and their priorities. So to your point earlier, we fall into the trap the other side, where it's just get on the call and demo, and feature. And by the end of it, we realized that it just didn't resonate because we didn't ask the right questions to know what their big pain point was. So we've been through a lot of education with our sales team to help them ask those right questions. And their pain point is never, I have videos, I want to be able to do this, right? Like you don't wake up going, oh my God, I wish I could do more with my videos, right? That's not what you wake up. You wake up thinking, how are we going to generate more leads tomorrow? And how am I going to help my sales team be more effective, right? And so we've coached our team to ask those questions so that when they do demo, they're tailoring to that need and they're not just going into feature overload. But at that point, we get right into it and we show them what we think they need to see. And we make sure at the end of every call, is this what you were looking for? And is there anything more we can show you to help? And we try to be more effective with that.
And just to build on that, I mean, when we analyzed the conversations that a lot of our B2B SaaS companies were having, on average, they were only able to ask 12 questions before they went into a demo. And obviously, there's variability around that, but if you flip it the other way, which is I only get 12 questions before somebody's going to feel like a rep is going to feel compelled to show a demo, then figuring out like what are those 12 questions, how do you make sure that those are going to surface the information that you need to make the demo relevant, to figure out if it's a real op, like all of those things come into play. So it's really interesting that you focus on that as well.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So shifting gears for a minute, in the final minute that we have, I guess one final question for you all. Complete shifting gears in terms of hiring. Can you each give us 5 seconds on what you hire for? Does data inform your hiring, or is it instinct?
Yeah, I don't think we've gotten to data informing our hiring yet. But that's interesting. I think the number one thing we look for is curiosity. It's like we want people that can ask really good questions, not just to respond, but to actually understand. And that way they can help customers. And if they can't do that, that's an easy disqualification.
Awesome.
I'll share, we do hire from some firms that train SDRs, and so we look at the data and how they perform there. But the thing that I'd actually like to share is something I learned from a CRO from another startup, which is she created this massive handbook that is actually everything you need to be onboarded at the company, and she gives it to the SDRs as a part of the interview process, and it gives them 2 hours to learn it. And it's an absurd amount of material. Like, there is no way that you're going to go through it, but she hands it to them to figure out, can they learn quickly? Can they figure out what they need to focus on? How quickly can they absorb it? And then she gives the interview based on the actual sales process. And what she said was, why would I hire somebody from some stuff, then give them this, massive encyclopedia and then figure out whether or not they can do the job if I could just test for that before I ever make them an offer. And I don't know if this is representative, but some of her SDRs are booking 60 meetings a month, which is absurd. So it's something worth experimenting with.
Awesome.
I don't have to hire sales reps. I'm the lucky one on the stage, so I'll pass on this question.
Awesome. Cool. I think we are out of time. So Mike, Roy, Tyler, awesome chatting with you guys, and thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Chris.
So,